Noah sat on the floor, casually toying with his vibration rune, when he noticed Lee and Moxy walking toward him. He turned to greet them, asking if they'd come to an agreement. Lee confirmed they had, but Moxy offered a less definitive answer. She explained that she had heard Lee out and was still sorting through her thoughts, though she admitted she may have acted too harshly. Noah welcomed the progress. He admitted he had been getting bored and was glad to hear things were patched up, especially since tomorrow was a big day. Moxy then asked if his students knew about Lee, to which Noah replied that they didn't. In fact, there were many things they didn't know. It was his role to evaluate the challenges they faced and ensure they only encountered what they were ready for. As long as they didn't try to kill anyone they shouldn't, he figured everything would be fine. Moxy informed him that she had spoken with Emily, and the two of them would be joining Noah on his field trip, at least until they arrived at the Linwick estate. They wouldn't be going in, of course, for reasons that were too obvious to state. Their presence there wouldn't be well received. Noah understood and instructed them both to meet him by the transport cannon in the morning, mentioning he needed to speak with Braden before then. Lee waved him off and Noah waved back, reminding them not to be late as he walked away. Entering his room, Noah found Braden just waking up. Braden groggily asked if it was morning already. Noah corrected him. It wasn't morning. He had actually slept through the entire day. Shocked, Braden said he needed to get going, insisting that he had work to do. Though he admitted last night had been nice, he couldn't afford to slack off. Noah assured him that he understood but asked to speak with him about work before he left. When Braden asked if it was about the Hellreaver, Noah confirmed it was related. Braden pressed him, curious if Noah had discovered something. Noah hinted that it was more than just something, reminding Braden of his earlier question, whether everything was going according to plan. Braden recalled the moment, explaining that their father had been impatient and that time was precious. But Noah had assured him there was nothing to worry about. Noah reaffirmed that sentiment, saying there truly wasn't, because there was nothing left to do. He asked Braden for forgiveness, revealing that he had been very careful. Everything had to be properly aligned before he could share more. Braden, growing suspicious, pressed him again. Either he had completed his goal or he hadn't. Then, something clicked in Braden's mind, and he demanded to know what Noah was saying. Noah asked Braden what he thought, reminding him that few people knew him better. Braden asked if Noah had been celebrating more than just his arrival. Noah nodded and said he had been drinking to success. Their success. Braden's for discovering who had killed the Hellreaver, and his own for finally completing the task he had set out to do long ago. Braden stared at Noah, his voice tinged with disbelief as he asked if Noah had really trapped it inside himself. If the entity had just been sitting there all this time. Noah explained that it had taken time to find balance. Housing something so powerful within his body hadn't been easy. He hadn't lied about the amnesia when they last met, but now he and the being had come to an agreement. Still in shock, Braden asked if that meant it was over. But Noah corrected him, it was only just beginning. He told Braden he needed to be taken back to their father. It was time for a conversation. Internally, Noah knew it was also time for him to get some real answers. The next morning, the students had gathered. Noah stepped forward and asked where Moxy was. Emily explained that Moxy was still collecting a few things for the journey. She mentioned that she had never managed to convince Moxy to let her leave Arbitage and asked Noah how he had done it. Noah replied with a grin, saying it was bribery. Emily's curiosity piqued, and she asked what he had found that Moxy wanted. Laughing it off, Noah clarified that he was joking. He had simply convinced her it would be best. Besides, with the survival exam coming up, this would be good experience. Emily sighed, disappointed. She had been hoping there was actually something she could bribe Moxy with, but Moxy was just too rich. That surprised Noah. He hadn't pegged Moxy as someone wealthy. Emily explained that Moxy was a Tauren who worked for the main branch, specifically for her mother. She was one of the most promising mages they'd ever seen. Though she could have chosen the path of a soldier, she had instead become Emily's teacher. Noah reflected on how Emily said the word soldier. It made him think that in this world, being a soldier was more than just being someone who fought. He remembered someone he had met before, a man named Silvertide who had also mentioned soldiers. That memory stirred a question in him, and he asked why Moxy hadn't become one. Had she simply changed her mind? Emily explained that being a soldier wasn't everything people made it out to be. Moxy was better off where she was than risking her life for the faint hope of fame. Todd suddenly jumped into the conversation, defending the role of soldiers. He said they were the ones who discovered a lot of new runes. It wasn't about fame. It was about discovering magic and pushing yourself. Noah didn't argue. Todd had a point, but Emily responded that it didn't change the fact that most soldiers ended up dying while chasing glory. That was why there weren't many noble soldiers. Nobles valued their lives too much. Todd pushed back, accusing nobles of simply letting others die for them. They didn't become soldiers because they didn't want to do their own dirty work. He suggested that maybe if Emily learned from someone who wasn't a glorified babysitter, she'd understand what it meant to struggle for something. Emily bristled and challenged the idea, asking if Todd was implying that anyone could train better than Moxy. She pointed out that Todd's teacher hadn't even shown up to class for days and was now a suspect for. She stopped herself before finishing the sentence, but Todd caught it. He finished the thought aloud, saying that if it were true Noah had killed a great monster, then that made him awesome. Way cooler than any other teacher. Emily wasn't having it. She insisted that Noah was just a mage like Moxy, only worse. Todd retorted that Noah was more like a soldier pretending to be a mage. Their bickering was interrupted by a new voice. Noah turned and saw Moxy approaching. Emily instantly shrank under her gaze, quickly saying that they were just discussing things. Moxy raised an eyebrow and asked what they had been discussing. Just then, Braden appeared with a loud and cheerful greeting, calling out to Noah, asking if he was excited for the trip. But his tone changed as he looked around at the others gathered. He acknowledged them with a more serious expression, remarking that of course they were coming too. He turned to Noah and commented that he understood not wanting to abandon responsibilities, even for personal matters, but then questioned why Moxy was joining them. Noah explained that he and Moxy were working together on a joint exercise. Their areas of expertise were different, so they had decided it would be best to combine their knowledge. Braden offered a dry, sarcastic comment to Moxy, remarking on how magnanimous she was being. Moxy, unfazed, assured him that they wouldn't be following all the way to his estate. Braden responded that as long as she could protect herself, it was always better to travel in numbers. Anything could happen on the roads. Noah smiled at the exchange and, with a grin, suggested they get going. But Braden held up a hand, saying they still had to wait for 2 more people. Noah raised an eyebrow, surprised, and asked who else was joining them. Braden explained that since they were headed to the Linwick estate, he had made some arrangements to make the trip appear more official. At that moment, he spotted the arrivals in the distance and waved them over, calling out to Magus, Allen, and Edward. Noah and Moxy let out a simultaneous groan, both wearing matching looks of disapproval as the two approached. Magus Allen stared at Noah and his group, his face twisted with visible disgust. The sentiment was mutual. Noah's group looked back at Allen with matching disdain. None of them wanted to travel together. Allen questioned their presence, clearly displeased, but Braden calmly reminded him that both parties needed to head to the estate and asked if that would be an issue. Noah sided with Allen, pointing out that they didn't exactly see eye to eye and suggesting they should travel separately. Allen immediately agreed, but Braden dismissed their concerns, stating he wasn't making the trip twice. Allen relented, saying he would tolerate the arrangement as long as Magus Vermil kept his distance. Noah agreed to those terms. With the matter settled, Braden pointed out that the road ahead would be filled with dangers and that adding more tension among the group wasn't wise. He explained that the journey would take about 2 weeks, maybe less if everything went smoothly, though he doubted that would happen. He added that he didn't have a wind rune and wouldn't be flying or carrying anyone. That meant they'd be walking. If anyone had complaints, they were free to travel on their own. When he asked if there were any questions, silence fell over the group. No one had anything to say. As they walked, Noah turned to ask if he should have brought a tent. That night, the group stopped to rest. Braden announced they would camp there and asked if anyone could start a fire. Noah volunteered, raising his hand, then knelt down and began working on it. Meanwhile, Alan approached Isabel and instructed her to use her stone rune to make shelter, expressing his refusal to sleep without cover. Noah, watching the interaction, silently wondered how Alan knew what rune Isabel had. Isabel replied with a touch of sarcasm, saying it would be good practice even if her work might not meet his lofty standards. She placed her hand on the ground and summoned a stone tent with her rune. Alan examined it and acknowledged it as acceptable work, though he remarked that his rune was wasted on someone of her status. Noah watched Isabel with admiration, realizing her cleverness. She had taken a greater stone rune from his grimoire, and to avoid suspicion, she had copied the same type of rune from Alan's grimoire after their bet. It was a brilliant move. Turning his attention to Lee, Noah asked to be caught up on body imbuement, assuming it was similar to regular imbuement. Lee confirmed it was but noted it was harder because it involved working with a body part one cared about. She advised starting with a small amount of energy to trace the rune on the chosen area, then retracing it daily so that, over time, the body and rune would naturally form a connection. Noah acknowledged that it made sense. It was a long-term modification, not a sudden change. Lee agreed but added that skilled individuals could speed up the process. Noah remarked that it was clever, and Lee admitted she had a good teacher. Curious, Moxy asked who it was. Lee simply replied it was Failure. She had blown her limbs off several times during practice. Emily chimed in, noting that must have required a lot of healing potions, guessing Lee's family was rich. Lee laughed and said they were rich in strength, maybe. Lee then asked Emily how her imbuements were going. Emily admitted they weren't going well. She couldn't get her ice rune to bind with her stomach, and it kept fading away. Alan interjected, criticizing the practice of body imbuement and pointing out the danger of using rank 1 runes for it. He questioned why Moxy would allow her student to take such risks, saying he could understand it from Vermil, but not from her. Noah snapped back, defending his students and reminding Alan of the outcome of their last exam. Alan grunted in response. Moxy muttered that he was a sour old man, but Braden stepped in to explain that Alan usually meant well, even if he wasn't good at expressing it. Braden then changed the subject and opened a space from which he took out some food, inviting the others to eat. He added that he didn't care if they joined, he was eating either way. Later that night, Braden sat alone by the fire. After a while, he walked over to Moxy and gently knocked to wake her. His watch was over and it was her turn. He noted there shouldn't be any trouble, saying even a Tauren could handle this. Moxy got up and watched him retreat into his tent. Afterward, she walked away from the camp. Once she felt far enough, she assured herself no one would overhear. Taking out a seed, she planted it in the ground. A plant swiftly sprouted, and from it emerged a figure. The figure spoke, displeased with the setting and demanding to know the location. Moxy knelt before the sprouted plant as the figure of Magus Evergreen emerged, her form taking shape from the stem with an air of sharp authority. Moxy kept her posture respectful, head slightly bowed, and explained that they were currently on a trip. Evergreen's expression turned stern. It had been far too long since Moxy's last report, and now she had left on a journey without receiving approval. She demanded to know what had possessed Moxy to act without clearance. Remaining on her knees, Moxy answered calmly, saying that she had been very busy and that much had happened. Evergreen was not satisfied. Her tone grew sharper as she reminded Moxy that the more that happened, the more she should have been reporting. She questioned whether Moxy was behaving like a chastened schoolgirl or still upheld the duties of a Magus of House Tauren. She then brought up something Moxy had previously reported, her progress with someone who could be easily manipulated. The name came off her tongue with deliberate clarity. Vermil Linwick. With commanding presence, Evergreen ordered her to explain everything.